Let me go live. All right, we're good to go.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Wednesday, July 26th, and 2 days after the effective roll and this constant rebalancing. And of note, the rebalancing, we saw some sell out attacks and go into some other areas on Friday and Monday. And for all of a sudden, the rotation, the rebalancing just seemed to stop. And people came back into techs, and we had kind of a bid to the techs pretty much all day yesterday until we went into a key resistance area in the NDX of 19,690, 19,700. So I'm going to let's say on your left screen is the SPOOs SP 500 futures. Right screen is the Nasdaq from yesterday, so it's the real time trading hours. So I'm on electronics. So I want to give you an idea of so there's the pic again. There's the picture of where we've been and where we are. So of note yesterday, both Dan and I and Lee Smooth, we pretty much felt that there was going to be it was going to be a little more of another consolidation play in this area here to kind of fill this out. Because if the market wants to, let me do this. That's the area I'm referring to. If the market wants to stair step higher after such an incredible move up, it needs to build a real strong platform here to be able to leg higher. So we felt that there was a higher odds that we would be somewhat trapped into this area and it would be a range trade, consolidation trade. However, in the event we were to break down below the 55.11 area, make sure I'm on that damn. Yeah, there we go.
You're right. That's dead on the spot.
There we go. If we were to break down into the 55.11 area and below, this was, and that correlates, the spread is about 70 points. So that correlates to the 54, 40, 45, 47 area in SPX roughly. The spread has kind of come in a little bit. Actually, the spread reduced to 66.50 yesterday. My error. Anyway, if we were to trade below this level right in here, we would then go back and we would have a trade back into this area here. So, and that is, it would kind of come back into this area here. So there was a good chance that we could do that. Had the text not, achieved a bid, there was a decent chance we could do that because we we had a small gap up, and there was the potential to go down and fill that gap, which was really right down in here. I'm going to go to it. Let's see. There was potential to go down and fill that gap and test that as support. We were inclined to use that as support to get long. And in the event that it broke down from there, we would look for a short, probably 3 to 4, 5 points below, with the idea we would trade back down here. That was the trade plan. That was the idea. So now I'm going to go, another thing I want to show you. So this area here was the area that I was looking for the area of resistance that I was looking for the short, 55, 58, 60. That's the area I was looking at. However, I used NASDAQ as my tells. And NASDAQ, you can see with the purple triangle here, rectangle here. This is the area I was keying in on to be able to get short. So basically when NASDAQ came in here, that's when I was able to get short in the SPOOs. And it was just a great correlation, and it kind of dovetailed off of the 55.50 area in the SPOOs. which you can see there is some sort of resistance there. But eventually, I thought there was potential for us to go higher. It's okay, we didn't, but we had the great correlation off of that. We proceeded to trade back down. So you can see the arrow here. We proceeded to catch this to trade it all the way back down to this 1950, 81, 83 area. And I kept calling that area out for well over an hour of like, if you were short, this was an area you better be, whatever the level correlates to on the SPOOs, you got to be paying attention to this area here. So when it gets down to it was getting down to 19,580, 590, that was when I was looking for a long. I was just looking for a long. And that, and on the first attempt, it worked. And then later in the day, and then after that, we did trade. Well, we traded down to the 55.13 area. And that ended up just being a beauty of a trade. And it ran all the way. I mean, it ran from 55.13 back up to this 30 area here, right in here. So that just ended up being a beauty of a trade. I did not hang on that long. Smooth really milked the heck out of that. But I'm a firm believer that I'm always trying to take the meat of the trade. I take my scales for half my position 2 to 3 points in. If I'm lucky, I get more. That just gives me the confidence because now I've got 2 to 3 points of buffer. That gives me the confidence to trade more size. Once you reach that level trading more size, your focus is on the meat of the move. It's not like if you're trading a 20 or 40 or 50 lot, then you're trying to hang out with like an extra 1 or 2 or 3 contracts for the max 30 or whatever. I don't look at it that way. I look for just the key areas where I just want to be long gone. And off of that 13 level, the key area for me is to be able to reach up to the 30, 31, but it was reaching up to the VPOC 55.26. I was already out. I think I may have had 1 or 2, but I was able to just kind of take this trade. And I mean, I had full size on and I picked up probably an average of 13 points on full size. That's a sweet trade. So again, it was off of a phenomenal correlation with the NASDAQ. You were able to get your scales quickly, which gave you the confidence to let the trade develop. And then you were able to just have key levels. So you're able to come back in and you went down and you scaled. I was looking for scales at this 17, 18 area. We got the scales there. Then we got scales at 21. And then I left the remaining half for this 26 VPOC area. And it proceeded to hang out here and run higher. So phenomenal trade in the futures. There was probably 4 good trades. And I kind of calculated, I think my average position size was probably half because I had a few that were quarters. We're a half and probably yielded an average of 10, 11 points on all of them. The worst being about 3 or 4 points and the best being about 13. So that's a heck of a day. All right, so forget me and my trade and what I did because it's today and I should have already forgotten about it, but I just wanted to talk about the trade yesterday. So where are we right now? Electronic, let's see, SPOOs were down 16 points. So we were trading at this 15, 20, 21 area, which was an area of interest. Okay, so now let's use that as a reference point. We're down 20, or excuse me, we're down 15, 16. So SPX 54, let's go on and bring the SPX chart up. Okay, here we are. We have the closing range right here at 54.69. So for down 15 points, you guys can do the math. That's going to bring us down into the 52 area. So let's identify that. So we're going to, well, here we are right here. So we're going to have if we were to open right now, we're going to gap down and we're going to be in this area. So we're presented with 2 choices immediately. We have the SPX 55. Here's this 55, 46, 47 area I told you about, and that correlates to the key area of support in the 55, 10, 11 area I was talking about with the SPOOs. But we're now going to be in real-time trading hours. You got to focus on the real-time market. That's where the real-time stocks, they actually start trading. they start having an influence, a different influence than the Globex activity. Okay? Globex is speculating about what we could possibly be doing here or any pre-market or overnight activity. So we're going to have a decision to make. Are we going to long this? We're going to be looking for along this 46, 47 area. That on initial hit, that's what I'll be looking to do. However, I'm going to be really keyed in on the NASDAQ level. So I'm going to go over here real quickly. Let's get rid of all these damn lines. Get rid of the lines because we need clarity. Okay. The NASDAQ futures are down 53. So basically, you're going to be at 19,650. So this can have an influence on, what you're thinking about doing, the long or short here. So we're talking NASDAQ, the NDX is going to open up right around in there. Well, relatively speaking, if we had a key level of support here at this 19,470 on Monday, and we had an area here of 19,581, that should ring a bell from the chart we were just looking at. I'm pretty confident if we trade down to this area, this should be supportive here. Now, if and only if the NASDAQ does sell off further and it wants to go down and it wants to kind of come down and test this area of support, guess what that's going to do to the SPX? It's literally, this is where there will be a chance for a short because it's going to push the ES down in here. Because we're already 6 points above our support level. So if the NASDAQ comes off another 50 to 100 points, that's going to have a sell pressure, sell influence down here. So then this is the reason why, because initially when I looked at this chart, this was going to be a potential long area. You got to watch what the NASDAQ's doing. So automatically, if I go in here and I'm looking for a long at this 47 area in the ES, I'm paying attention. I'm a hawk on this area here. I'm looking to see, what are we doing here? What is NVIDIA doing? What are some of the other key stocks? What are they doing? So automatically, I'm not trading full size. I'm not trading half size. I will be looking at possibly a quarter size long here because I'm anticipating that if the NASDAQ pushes further down here, it's going to drag. It's going to push the ES down lower. And we could, in fact, have a chance to trade back in this area today because of the influence of the NASDAQ. So we have to just key in on some of the key texts as of what sort of leadership is there to see if we get a tell. So there's a few areas that I'll be looking for. I would love to build the NASDAQ to be able to kind of this 19,700 area. This will be a key level of resistance if it decides to go up this way. And if it decides to come up, if NASDAQ decides it wants to kind of come up and close the gap and come up here, that's where I could get an early long here, but I'm only going to be trading quarter size because I'm exposing myself to more points of risk. So I hope that's jiving with you guys, why I'm reducing the size so significantly, because I'm exposing myself now to possibly 3 to 5 points of risk. And that's not my thing. I don't do that. So how do you play it? You adjust your size. But I'll be watching it like a hawk. That's all I got. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. I don't really have a ton to add on the futures side. I think that was a pretty good explanation. We do have sort of this level here, that 5520 area that would correlate to the SPX 5445, like David was mentioning. And then I think a little bit below that that would be like 5450 would be the 20. And then below that, so it would be ES 5515 area in here. That's the 45 area. And I was looking at Spot Gamma this morning. That's where they have the volatility trigger, which sort of is an interesting area. I believe that's where it was actually yesterday, but let's put that there. See how we've dunked below it 1, 2. Yeah, my thought is if we come on, this is an hourly chart, we come and hit this 55.10, 55.11. We get down there again, I think we break. And back in this red box, which is sort of what we were talking about yesterday, where I think we need to revisit this area and build a base. If we bounce off here, 10, 15 area, if we bounce off here and continue to make this range, I'm going to start changing my thesis and start thinking that we're building this range here to head higher and to retest these upper levels. So that's sort of my thinking today, and I'm not going to go too crazy on the futures because I think it was well stated. So let me see if I can make this bigger. Oh, why is it not giving me the, can expand right somewhere? Why is it not? Give me my button. I don't know where my button is there, but let's do it here. So Rivian, we got long this name down in this 10 area. So I was doing some work on it this morning, and we're gonna end up opening sort of, let's go get my brush. We're gonna open sort of in this area here. So look where that is. One sort of big time overhead. It looks like from their last earnings call, that was the overhead before this big dump, and we've had this big range here. So we really need to get over this 1688, 1617, and then we've got a little bit of a gap here, we got a little bit of a gap here, we got a little bit of a gap here, and this name really gets thin. So once we, and let's sort of, I'm zooming out. Once we get sort of zoomed out here, we get over this 17, we're starting to get pretty thin. We got a little room up to like 22. There's not a whole lot in here. Over 22, there's not a whole lot in here, all the way up to 28. And then you've really got nothingness. So if we zoom out and we go to a weekly, this is weekly on Rivian. This was at IPO'd at $180 or $150, whatever it is. We're all the way down here. Look at all the room that we have just to retrace back to 28, which would be almost a 200% gain on equity. So today is going to be an interesting one, because do they continue this, or is it just a short squeeze? I don't know if this is Chewy-esque news. Chewy was sort of game changing. You know, they're buying back over 10% of the float. Is this game changing? It might be. I mean, that's a pretty big investment from a pretty big auto manufacturer. They got the investment from VW. I did trim some in the 17 area, 1705. I think I got my trim, but I'm still sitting with a pretty significant position, and I'm gonna look and see what options do on it. If we get some crazy options activity on it, and people are just betting on upside on it, I might try and ride the wave on some options on it. So that's something that I'm gonna be looking at here, and I'm gonna just pull this one up briefly. Let's go to daily. So we, if you remember, sort of back when we first talked about it here, we talked about over here, sort of just the air, and how there's air up here. There's very, very, very similar to Rivian, is that there's not a whole lot of resistances up here. So there's not a whole lot of volume. So we can move sort of willy-nilly through these areas pretty quick. And this has been a great trade from the 19 area up into this 30. And I think we could probably go back up to the 38, 40 area up in here. I think that makes the most sense for where this move eventually stops. But I could also see this retracing back to 27, maybe even 25 before doing that. It's going to, I mean, that is a massive move, but look at the volume there. big volume. I mean, not as big as the one we got long. That was right here, but there's some big volume here on these candles. This is definitely a continuation of a very bullish chart and very bullish setup that I think we can ride for a bit longer. I don't think this ride is over. So I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. All right. Well, I'll just quickly review, the same thing yesterday from the futures trade. Let me make this full. So we had this broadening formation yesterday that we played multiple times. We were basically shorting the top, longing the bottom, and got 3 or 4 really decent trades out of it yesterday. Right now we're kind of coming back down into this 20 area. I did keep these broadening lines on my chart. We did break out of it a few times here, so it could be invalidated now, but I'm just going to keep them there just in case. But I mean, this is potential for a long way down here if it does come all the way back down to this trend line, and I'll be certainly watching that to see if that still acts as some sort of support. I did take some Fibonacci measurements from this low yesterday up to the high, and we'll kind of see, we're coming back down. Now we're at the 78 retracement right here, and we will see if these measurements, get into the extension levels, and this 161.8 down here would be sort of a key metric there at 54.8550. If we do get a sell-off back into those areas mentioned. I'll zoom out a little bit so I know there's a lot of lines here, get a little dizzy, but the initial area that we'll be looking at again is this 55.10, as both Dan and Gov mentioned here. Below that is when I would probably look at this level here as a really key target on the short side. So if we do get below 55.10, 5500 is obviously going to be a key psychological area, and also probably a gamma area. Beyond that, this 54.85 would be a decent spot to identify on the short side. But, there is always a chance we can find some support down in here like we did yesterday and then just rally back up here. So we'll just kind of see how this plays out. And just these Fibonacci levels on the way up will sort of act as areas that I'll be watching for any profit taking or using them as levels of support. On the pivot side, we do have a weekly pivot here, this yellow line, which we're below now, and that's usually my sort of generally being bullish above and bearish below, and we're a ways below that, and that's up at the 55.37 level. So I'll be watching that. If we do get back up into that area, that could be a decent spot to get back short. And actually, we came below it here pre-market around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Retested it, and then there was a short off of it. That would have been actually a decent short off of the break and the retest. I did not take it. I was watching other things, but that would have been a decent spot. So that's what I'm watching today. I'll be looking obviously for any technical setups in my patterns that I like to play, but right now I don't see anything. Just kind of seeing where we find some support. To see if there's a decent long opportunity back up into this trend line. On the individual stocks, obviously Tesla's always on my radar with the Rivian news. A lot of people expected a big sell-off when that news came in around here, and we never really got it. I don't see it as necessarily a negative. Usually could be a complement to the EV space in general. Seeing big companies come in with an investment. Overall, we're still looking at this inverse setup that's been playing out and consolidating for weeks in this level, and just waiting for this break over 190, and then can kind of truck up into this 200 area and hopefully above. But sort of zoomed in here, we do have an ascending triangle or ascending wedge pattern here, and it's getting kind of tight, so be watching that to see if we can get a break over this level here. We have a key resistance, and this red line is a monthly pivot level here at 187.91, so that's kind of what I'm watching there. And let me see, Avgo I saw was getting a little pop here. I don't know if there was any news. I don't think so, but we've been played this.
Something's a little wonky because a lot of the text got pops here, but bonds are selling off into no man's land. So there's something wonky going on with small caps and bonds and something, I don't know.
Hold on, somebody's saying that they can't hear me. Can you hear me? Oh, thoughts on Apple? Let me pull it up. Yeah, everything's getting a little pop here. Apple, let me zoom out here. Looks like a bull flag. You know, you kind of have an established trend line here that we're kind of popping out over right now. I know that there was was it Morgan? Let me see, that gave an upgrade. Let's see it.
No, it was someone crappy.
Oh, Rosenblatt, that was it. Yeah. It was like 260.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty sure Rosenblatt went long here. And they're holding the bag, so they're looking for that. But yeah, there's definitely some room up here if we get a breakout. I would be looking at, yeah, this 215 area is going to be a resistance spot if we do break out here. And just look at these areas of resistance if you're going to take it long. I do like the setup, though. Potentially, it's definitely a bull flag looking setup, so I would keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on this trend line. You know, these like to break out, come back and retest, and then get along, but not a bad one to look at here. Back to Tesla. Again, the same thing. We're breaking up over this now. Oh, we're actually getting a decent pop. Market's open, so Tesla's been the king of fake outs recently, so let's just see what happens here. We're coming up. We did get over this key resistance, which is nice, and now we've got a 188.88 to contend with here. This is a weekly R2, and we just broke over it. Let's have a look at what ES is doing. So it's definitely an individual stock type thing. We're not seeing a pop yet on the indexes. I'll stay on for a couple minutes here.
The ES SPX spread is opening up right at 65. So refine your levels accordingly.
I am still long Tesla, both equity and I have weekly 200s, which I paid, I don't know, 60 cents for. But we're coming into this zone here. If we can get over, this can really get a little rippy.
So it's interesting. They're selling this. They open up selling the SPOOs, but not necessarily on the NDX. I mean, that kind of held its level pretty well. So we're in.
I actually just bought back some of that Rivian I sold at 1705. I bought it back at 1550 or so.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of what my plan was. I sold 30% with the idea that if we have any sort of retrace, I'll buy those shares back, but I'm still sufficient long. So
Nvidia's selling off. This is a decent spot for ES to find support. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we gotta this 54.50 is a little lower here. I could see that making a little dunk to touch that area.
yeah, and as you say that, look at the NDX. It's like look at the area in 19669 where it's opening.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very minor gap above, but look at the room it has to sell down.
wow, look at
yeah,
this.
And now we're getting that.
Look at this
So that's where
volume
I'm saying
on.
I'd be cautious on the longs at the 54, 47, 48. I need to pay attention what the techs are doing.
That was a decent.
yeah. I wonder if we're gonna get sort of back to rotational on IWM. It looks like look at the volume and the
Yeah.
rip on the small
Heavy
caps.
sellers in the Russell. Yeah.
I wonder if we're gonna start seeing that rotation back there. I mean, we had that day the other day, but interesting.
This looks like it's gonna. Let's see here. We got.
I'm gonna be adding to target here around 145. I just added more. Let's see if I can fill. Yeah, yeah. I just added some more equity on target.
Tesla's at 190. Let me see where my contracts are. See if my price has exceeded my theta here. I'm still down 12%. Yeah, these really need to get in the money to, or close.
All right, I'm gonna hop off here. I got to do a couple
Yeah, me
things.
too. I've got
Yep.
to take care of a couple things here.
But I am watching this area